While additives do play a sometimes necessary role in the preservation of certain foods, many experts say that some of the most common U.S. additives are unnecessary and could be causing significant harm to consumers' health. Still, as the American diet has become more processed, commercialized, and synthetic over the last several decades, the proliferation of these additives has grown. Regulation differences have come under even greater scrutiny in the last several months, at least partially because of Brexit. As the UK attempts to move toward exiting the EU, many of its citizens and experts have expressed concern that Britain will be subjected to foods coming into the country that have been inspected and regulated by US agencies and not the EU. In an editorial published in The Lancet in March, Tim Lang, professor of food policy at the University of London, writes, "Few analysts think EU standards are perfect, but comparing EU, US, and other food standards, we concluded that EU regulatory standards are among the highest in the world and rightly prioritize prevention over remediation." Jessica Gary-Redmond, assistant professor in the Department of Food Safety, Nutrition, and Policy at Syracuse University, said, "Unfortunately, the overall health and wellness of the U.S. population is not the primary concern when food policies are created." Maricel V. Maffany, a consultant for the Center for Science in the Public Interest, said that for most of these additives, long-term effects aren't researched or even considered in the regulation process. Information on how the substances affect chronic diseases, fetal development, how multiple chemicals can affect the same organ or susceptibility to diseases later in life is all missing from the discussion. The great majority of the additives purposely added in food in the U.S., when tested, are tested in adult animals, which means that developmental effects in fetuses or in children are not considered in testing, said Maffany. In a study we published in 2013, we found that only 6.7% have reproductive or developmental data in FDA's database, and overall only 21.6% have feeding studies needed to estimate a safe level of exposure in the population. This could be having an impact on Americans' overall health. When comparing life expectancies with other developed nations, the United States consistently ranks at or near the bottom of the list, and in 2018, for the third year in a row, life expectancy dropped in the nation. There are several explanations for why the U.S. ranks so poorly, but many experts say the American diet, which typically contains significantly more processed foods than those of other cultures around the world, may also be in part to blame. Due to this difference, it may seem too far out of reach for the U.S. to adopt the regulatory practices the EU employs unless dramatic changes to the American diet are made, such as eating more fresh foods and less processed foods, said Bose. This would considerably decrease the consumption of various additives and preservatives, thereby decreasing exposure to the potential toxicity of these chemicals via ingestion. Lisa Lefferts, a senior scientist at the Center for Science in the Public Interest, has petitioned the FDA to ban, or at the very least require specific warning labels, but Lefferts said CSPI has been mostly unsuccessful because of the influence of food and chemical interest groups, including the Grocery Manufacturers of America and the American Chemistry Council. Lefferts summed up American food regulations bluntly: the U.S. system for ensuring the understanding and safety of substances added to food is broken. While food safety experts say there are several concerning food substances that remain legal in both the EU and the U.S., including aspartame, BPA, and nitrates, listed below are 5 used in the making and preserving of mass-produced food in the United States that are otherwise banned or highly regulated in Europe and in other areas of the developed world. Critics say they are some of the most common and controversial that are found in mass-produced American food. We petitioned FDA to ban potassium bromate in 1999, charging even then that the FDA had known for years that it caused cancer in laboratory animals, said Lefferts. FDA only urged bakers to voluntarily stop using it. Many have, but others still use it. Considering that many breads don't contain azotacarbonamide and that its use slightly increases exposure to a carcinogen, this is hardly a chemical that we need in our food supply, Lefferts wrote in a statement regarding its use in the U.S. While scientists say that RBGH likely does not have specific negative effects on humans because it is mostly destroyed during the pasteurization process, its use stimulates in the cow another hormone, insulin-like growth factor, or IGF-1. Cow's milk that is treated with RBGH has higher levels of IGF-1, which is not broken down in the pasteurization process, and some studies have shown that IGF-1 can make its way into the human bloodstream after digestion. According to the American Cancer Society, IGF-1 levels at the high end of the normal range may influence the development of tumors in the breast, prostate, and colon in humans. Furthermore, cows that are administered the hormone suffer significantly more than their non-hormone-fed counterparts from reproductive issues and mastitis, an inflammatory of the tissue that can cause infections in udders due to overproduction of milk. And critics say the use of RBGH is animal cruelty. In 1999, an EU science report on animal health and welfare noted that the use of hormones causes severe and unnecessary pain, suffering, and distress for the animals. Finally, because of the additional infections, farmers administer significantly more antibiotics to the cows, often in a preventive manner, before an infection even occurs. The practice has left the medical community particularly concerned because of the continuous rise of antibiotic resistance in humans, according to the CDC. In a statement to News Pulse News, General Mills, which is the umbrella company for dozens of food brands that use various additives, including color dyes, said the company has at times removed artificial food dyes where it was able to find natural coloring ingredients that consumers found acceptable. But some substitutions didn't work out, because consumers preferred the original formulas.